Hello, everyone. Welcome to our conversation with Steve Foran. Steve and I both live in beautiful Halifax, Nova Scotia, and we've known each other for almost 20 years, I think, Steve. And we
Yeah.
actually started our businesses around the same time, more or less about the same time.
Yeah.
And although we haven't maintained connection over the years, Steve was certainly one of the first people that I thought of when I decided to do these conversations about shift, real stories and real transformations. So I'll let Steve tell you the story, but I will tell you that he used to be an electrical engineer.
Used to.
Oh, my
Used to.
apologies. Those credentials are still
I don't practice as one, but
Exactly. Yes, my husband happens to be a civil engineer, so I totally understand. And I totally appreciate you correcting me about that, Steve. It's like I used to be a classroom teacher, and guess what? Those credentials don't go away.
yeah.
Yes. Awesome. I
I
love it.
used to be an engineer. Yes, Sheila. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's beautiful. So you used to practice as an electrical engineer, a professional, certified electrical engineer,
Yeah.
and now you're doing something else. So the floor is all yours, Steve. Tell us a bit about your past and a little bit about where you are now.
Yeah. So to finish the sentence, so today I would describe myself as a believer in grateful leadership. And so from the engineer side of it, I still engineer energy. It's just a different type of energy. It's not electrical energy. It's the energy of gratitude, which, if we went right down to the cellular level, we would probably find it is a form of electricity, Sheila.
Yes, we are. Our brains emit electrical engineering, for example. No, electrical. How would you call it? Energy.
We know there's magnetic fields around us, the electrical. So there's we are electrical beings as well. I never studied the human biomedical engineering, but been exposed to it over the years. But yeah.
So that means we can
start. Where would you like to start here? What would be helpful, Eva?
Okay, great. Well, I'm curious. I'm really curious about what was it about practicing electrical engineering that perhaps wasn't as fulfilling as you thought it would be?
I really enjoy doing it. I like the challenge. I love still driving around and seeing my fingerprints on. I worked in the utility business with a power utility. So when I drive around, I don't look up at the wires as much as I used to, but when I worked there, all I would do, I'd be looking up at power lines where if we traveled everywhere. The beauty of being able to, that's my design. I was involved in that project, and just being able to be part of the world. Engineering, the beauty of it is it's science and it's creative arts that come together. And it's a wonderful thing. And it built on some of my natural ability at school. As I went through school, math just seemed to, not that it was easy, but I enjoyed it, and I kind of thought that was my spot. And that's what led me into the field of engineering. And then I just, when I started working in 1987 at Nova Scotia Power, when I got hired, I knew for a fact that I would retire there.
Yes, that was your blueprint for the future.
There was no other vision. I remember probably the company hired probably 7 or 8 people from our electrical engineering class, 4 or 5 from the mechanical engineering class. So there probably was a dozen engineers that were hired out of our graduating class that year. And I remember a few years later, we're sitting around the lunchroom at Nova Scotia Power, and I'm looking around thinking, which one of us is going to be president? And it
Wow.
wasn't me.
You knew it wasn't going to be you.
No, I think I thought it would end up being me. It was someone else at the table, but it wasn't me.
Oh, cool.
And then I think one of the things that really had a big impact on me in 1995 is this was when the whole wave of re-engineering was happening in the world of work, and we were rethinking how companies were structured and how things happened. And in the matter of 7 days, Nova Scotia Power went from like 2,500 employees to 1,800 employees.
Wow.
And I was one of the 1,800, but I was a very angry. I was furious. I was mad at the company. I was mad at anyone that was involved in it. I had to lay people off. I had to transfer people. I got transferred myself. I still had a job. And that, I think, just started me thinking, well, I knew for certain then, my idea of, I know for a fact I'm going to retire here. I knew that I was no longer going to retire there. And, you know, as I look back, I don't know if I had, you know, I think I had a bit of a naive perspective or view on what the company is responsible to do and can do, because I know how every single person that was exited and transitioned out of the company, they were dealt with the utmost respect, and most of them ended up being much better off after they left. They truly did. But there were some people that were, you know, really affected, you know, and negatively after being let go. But I think that was a turning point, because it started me thinking, what are you here for? What's your purpose, Steve? And that really began in 1995. And it took me almost 10 years to get the answer to it. It was like, I got to the point where I was like, what am I here for? And I remember I was working with a coach. And when I first started working with him, this would have been maybe 2002, 2003. I don't know, so probably in that time frame. So 7 years after, I'm here for a purpose. I just don't know what it is, but I'm looking for it. So I start working with a coach, and he says to me, the very first meeting, I'm in his office, he said, look, Steve, we've got our regular cadence of meetings. I don't know if it was every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or once a month. I can't remember the exact cadence. He says, but here's what you need to know. I'm here for you 24/7. And I think I probably like held back the smirk on my face, thinking, I'm going to call you? Anyhow, 3 or 4 months into our coaching work, I had taken a day off work, and I'm going to think about the future, and I'm going to write. And I was writing, and then all of a sudden, I'm bawling my eyes out. I am just a mess. I had just, you know, a day or two before, I had been talking to a friend, and he says to me, Steve, I'm doing exactly what I've been put on this earth for. My purpose, everything I'm doing, I'm a purpose. And my mouth is watering as I'm listening to him. And 2 days later, I'm journaling, trying to figure out, what is it you're supposed to do? And I go, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I'm going to call him. Keith, I'm coming over. And I show up at his coaching studio. And he says, what's wrong? And I don't know what condition I was in, but I was in a bit of all over the place. And I said, Keith, don't get me wrong. I love my life. I love my family. I love the work that I do, but I feel like I'm in the middle of an ocean in a boat, just getting bounced where the waves go. I've got no oar. I've got no mast. I'm just going wherever if the ocean wants me to go. And you know what? I know that I have a purpose, but I don't know what it is. And Keith looks at me and he says, at least you know. And it was like he just took all the pressure out of the balloon. Seriously, it was a very simple sentence, but at least you know. And you're right. At least I know. And he said, do you know how many people don't know they truly have a purpose? Because you do. Sheila, you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to stop, kind of pause here. Like, we have a purpose. And the struggle to find it, for me, it was a struggle. Some people can go boom and, oh, I know exactly what I want to do. I do it. So I love having conversations with people who are in career change, or I say career change, whatever that you hit a fork in the road. Yogi Berra says, take it. Yeah, talk to me before you take it. I just love having the conversation. So I'll kind of pause there.
Well, I don't want you to pause, because of course, I have some questions. And the question is, number one, I think you ultimately did discover your purpose.
Yeah.
And you're living it, and you have been living it for a long time. My question is, how did you find it? Where was it? Where was the answer?
The answer was in my past.
Oh.
It at the time I was working at Nova Scotia Community College, and if you are familiar with our college system, we in the early 2000s we were really big on promoting this whole notion idea of a portfolio, that everyone has a portfolio. And if you think of someone who is an artist, a visual artist, or a photographer, yeah, they have a portfolio, right? Something that you can show, that demonstrate. Well, Nova Scotia Community College, believe that, well, every human being has a portfolio and it's just your life experience. And it's a little bit about your past, it's about your present, and it's about your future. So I was working on on the senior team, and we got a new vice president, and he came in and he said, this is really exciting. I'm so excited to be here at Nova Scotia Community College. One of the first things I'm going to do is build my own portfolio. What was it like for you folks when you built yours? And we all looked at him like deer in the headlights. None of us had done it. He says, guess what we're doing here for the next 4 months? And so we went through this process. That process of going through and looking back, and there was a bunch of exercises, a lot of reflection, no forcing. There was no forcing. It was just what comes up as you think about the year you were, like, chronologically, go back to the first year you were born, write out every year since, and then one memory from every single year. Like an exercise, that was one of the exercises we did. I've got a few years with no memories in them, but because I was so small. Fortunately, we moved a lot.
1-year-olds, we tend not to remember much from the first 4 or 5 years.
Right?
Yes.
But if you remember an instant from a house, I remember that house. How old was I then? So anyhow, but go through that exercise. So that exercise of reflecting on the past, identifying your skills, your gifts, what you're good at. Those were the things that made me sort of have the ideas converge into just this, oh my goodness, how did I not see this before? Like, wow. It was always there. And then I as our kids grew up, the recognition of how fortunate we are was the other, separately, I'm looking for this what is my purpose? And then in parallel, our kid, like I'm the oldest of five. So
Mhm.
I have this very, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but a, a, a closed or a small locus of control, or a centralized locus of control, like internal,
Internal locus of control.
internal
Gotcha.
locus of control. Like I control my own destiny. Like
I'm in
I
charge. Yeah.
I'm in like the old, like I would be at the extreme of self-made person type of internal locus of control. And our kids, they were 14, 15, 16 around this time. And their first jobs in a neighborhood coffee shop. Our oldest, Nick, he's earning minimum wage, working 4, 5, 6 hours a week. And he starts in August. And by the end of December, his bank account is greater than half of the world's population.
Interesting. Wow.
And I'm kind of trying to make sense of this. And I'm pointing at him. You didn't do this on your own. Right. But I'm not saying that out loud. But this, because we're proud of her. But I'm thinking this. But when I'm thinking that about somebody else, when you're thinking something about somebody else, it's usually because you're obsessed about your own self, right?
Absolutely.
You didn't do this on your own, Steve. Like, look at your life. And that was this realization. My life was handed to me on a silver platter. So I have this aha moment. At the time I was in grad school, dragging out, a degree, and I needed to research something. I was in the business school, and I remember walking into the dean saying, "Look, I want to do research on the connection between gratitude and charitable giving, and why people serve and why people help others." And that was like 2003, 2004, and back then, you do that in a business school, you got a weird look, right? That was the start of it. And when I finished my research, I looked at my wife and I said, "Hon, I think I got to start doing this for work." And I didn't even know what this was.
So you hadn't left Nova Scotia Power at this point. You were doing an advanced degree while you were at Nova Scotia Power?
So I was Nova Scotia Power, and then I changed to Nova Scotia Community College.
Gotcha.
So I left Nova Scotia Power maybe 2000, and so I'm 2 or 3 years into Nova Scotia Community College. We do this portfolio thing,
Right.
and the
Right.
whole thing happens with the kids and me having this realization, and these two things start colliding together. So this realization and this reflection on self. Where is it that, where are you gifted? How can you put that in service to humanity? And thus these ideas come together about, I'm going to take gratitude and help organizations bring it into their workplace culture. I'm going to help, organizations equip their leaders with a mindset that's going to help them live happier lives, to help them be, legacy leaders, to be the type of leader that somebody talks about at their in a eulogy at their funeral or their life celebration. So yeah, and so I was at the time before I started my business, I was at Nova Scotia Community College.
You're at the community college.
Yeah.
So something you said really caught my attention, Steve. You said it was there all along. Why didn't I see it? What was there all along that you didn't recognize?
It is it was just me and who I am, and I just never put it together. Like the woods in the Annapolis Valley, or
Mhm,
if we
mhm,
don't know they're there, they're still there,
mhm,
right?
mm,
So
mhm, mhm.
and we do, or we might not have words for it, or
Yes,
whatever the case is.
yes.
I just didn't have the words for it. I didn't. It wasn't. Maybe I was overlooked, but it was there. I just was. I was like, how did I not see that? Well, I think I was living on purpose the whole time, because
Uh-huh.
part of
Yes,
that
yes,
journey, it wasn't like I wasn't not meant to do that. That
yes.
provided such, it just helped. It's helped shape who I am today. I think it has, and I don't want to say that just because I do believe I'm very positive. So I'm going to see the positive in pretty much I'm going to find the positive in anything, and I'm going to be able to make sense of almost anything in a positive light. So I don't
Mhm.
think I'm fooling myself by saying that I think I was on purpose the whole way. I could be, but I don't think I am. Um, yeah,
So the word that's coming to me is about your story and your journey is essence. It's almost like um, the essence of who you are never changed all through your life.
really didn't know.
But there were some breadcrumbs that weren't revealing themselves. And I don't know who said it, but somewhere along the line, I heard the words that if we know our purpose, it's not our purpose. Does that
Yeah.
make sense to you?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Who are we to think we know our purpose?
Who are we to think we know anything? It's going to reveal itself,
Yeah.
um, perhaps in a more doing way, because that's what you've done from where I'm sitting, is that you've taken something inside and figured out with some help with some other people, because as you said so beautifully, we don't do any of this on our own.
Yeah.
We figure out that, oh yes, this is the next step, this is the
Yeah.
next step, this is the next step. And would you agree that there's a certain element of trust in that?
I think so.
Mm.
There's some trust. There's I don't know if how to describe this other than a sense of knowing, just
Yes.
knowing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's
Maybe that.
inside, right? It's an
Yeah.
internal knowing.
It's an
I love
internal, like, when the first year when I left my job, earned 25% of my income, and I'm working full time, baby. Believe me.
it. Yes. We
And
call those unpaid hours, right?
my wife looks at me and she says, "How much longer are we going to try this?" I'm thinking to myself, "What are you talking about? Try this. This is what I do." So, but for me, it was, even though it was like we were not financially free by any stretch of the imagination. So there was lots of pressures there, but I just had this knowing. I mean, my poor wife, she trusted me, but for her, it was much more of a leap to be able to, she supported me. I don't know if I would have done that in someone else. Maybe I'd like to think I would, but that whole knowing, and which helps, I think, because yeah, I trust for sure, Sheila.
Yeah, I sometimes refer to it as a GPS. There's something inside, and I'm sure there might be an electrical engineering metaphor in there for that as well. But yeah, there's some sort of GPS or guidance system that sends us along. So I'm really curious, because I know that I'm hearing from you how difficult it was, and I think you've told me years ago that, people basically told you you were crazy. You know, maybe not using those words, but that was kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, I got a lot of wrinkled. You're doing what? And um, yeah, and I was figuring it out as I was going along too,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And
mhm,
so the poor people that, my closest friends, I think I finally got them around to understanding what I do now, because how I explained it 17 years ago, if you would have heard me explain it then compared to now, it'd be quite a bit different, right?
mhm,
But the essence of it
mhm,
doesn't change. Because
mhm,
how I describe myself is as a believer in grateful leadership. I was a believer in grateful leadership back in 2005, 2006, 2007 when I started this. I didn't use that language.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
that's really what I was. And so I kind of feel like I'm on this journey of trying to master this notion of grateful leadership and what that means, and how it can impact us.
And what I'm hearing you saying, I think, is that you're not a different person than you were at Nova Scotia Power.
Yeah.
You're the same person,
Okay.
but you're doing something different, something that's more aligned with your purpose. That's pretty
It
beautiful.
And the beauty is, if you look at my work, like I can show you frameworks and illustrations that I I apply my engineering to
Mhm,
this work. So
mhm.
I still like the oath, the ritual of the calling of an engineer is over on the wall right behind me. And it's funny because I was talking to someone about this yesterday and I read it yesterday. So
Wow, wow. So it all served. It all serves.
it really does all serve, because sometimes when we're in the midst of it, like when I said I felt like I was in, it felt like I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean just getting pushed around, and it doesn't, that's not a fun place to be. So if that's where you are today, like you watching or listening, if that's where you are, as hard as this is here, it's okay. It's not where I wanted to be at the time, but as I look back, that was just maybe just a necessary part of what it was, and because it was all there. Um, it My essence has not changed. You've said
Mhm.
it much better than me, Sheila. So I'm just going to try and let you land the plane.
Oh, you're saying it pretty beautifully. It's
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, it feels like we're pretty complete. Is before I ask, there's a signature question I like to ask
Yeah.
everyone. So,
Yeah. No, that's. I'm happy. Anything else that you want to kind of chew around a bit? Like, what has your experience been? Because
oh, here's the coaching Steve coming out.
you well, you have guided and walked beside a lot of people who have been asking themselves questions like this in their careers and in their personal lives. And I guess I know you're not supposed to ask coaches for advice or anything, but is there advice or are there questions that someone like me could be asking myself, or things that I could be doing to help kind of uncover that sooner? Because humans, we want things sooner, not later. That is one thing that is constant. So any advice or
Well,
experiences to
yeah.
share,
Um,
make it
Ve-
less fun?
Yes, giving advice again is generally not what I do, but I think my focus right now, and thank you for asking because this is really not about me, but my focus really is about all the stress and overwhelm in the world. And I think it is because we're trusting external sources rather than our internal wisdom.
Mm.
And you're a beautiful example of somebody who said, yes, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and this is pointing me somewhere. So I think
Mm.
that's the message we're both saying,
Nice.
is that whatever's happening is happening for some kind of reason. And if you can't figure it out, go to somebody like your wonderful coach, Keith,
Yeah.
who is there 24/7 for you. And yes, find somebody and be guided to that person. And you know what we're seeking is seeking us, right? If we're looking for purpose, our purpose is there, and it also wants to welcome us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I just made that up. So here's my signature question for you.
Yeah.
And you've touched on this, but if you could put it very succinctly, what has been the siren call that has underscored your life? That thing that just kept calling you and calling you.
The flame, I think, was really lit in 1995 when Nova Scotia Power did,
Did
there
that
was a big
thing.
shift there. That changed my mindset, and it maybe it just made me start looking, and it matured me in ways. But the call to to hand in my resignation and start doing this work, and looking at my wife and just saying, Lynn, I think this is what we got to start doing, because the number of people that looked at me, it's like, what are you doing? Like, you're leaving, you're an engineer, right? And it just was, a lot of folks would say that was a bold, courageous move to do that. And it really didn't feel that way when I was doing it. I knew it, like, I'm risk averse and all these things. It didn't feel like a really risky thing to me. Externally, it did to so many people. And I know people were just concerned, right? It was just concern. They don't want anything, your loved ones and friends and people that care for you. So that was probably, I think, siren call, is knowing that I had to do that. I just knew. Yeah.
It's that knowing, despite the risks and despite the judgments from other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to just give you kudos for your courage and to your wife, Lynn. I know how important
she's
Yes, your queen, I think you call her.
Yeah, my queen. But you know what I mean? Like, our whoever is that person journeying with me, they get it vicariously, but they don't experience it the same way. So there is having someone beside you, like I had just the privilege with Lynn to be with me, that was a game. She's a game changer, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so beautiful. I just got the feels when you talked about that, and the beautiful relationship you have with your wife. It's to have a partner that supports. Can you imagine if they didn't? It's like I'd still be at Nova Scotia Power, still angry and frustrated. Yeah. So kudos for your courage and your daring.
Yeah. Thanks.
The hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell calls it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my days at Nova Scotia Power, I treasure.
Yes.
Like, you have those. Everything has those moments, and I still get to drive around and say, "That's my work. That's my work." So you get that.
And now you do it, and you say, "I worked with that person, and this happened with that person." Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so beautiful.
It is. Yeah.
So beautiful. So anything else you'd like to say before we ask you? Well, I'll put your contact information with this video, but anything else you'd like to add before we close off, Steve?
Yeah. I'd like to thank you, Sheila. Thank you for trusting your people to me, because we really appreciate our connection over the years, and I don't know, the kindredness in our work. So thank you very much, and thanks for the conversation today.
You're very welcome, and the feeling is very, very mutual, Steve. Thank you so much. And so yes, you have a business, gratitude, built around grateful leadership. Is there anything, what kind of invitation do you want to make to people who might be interested in reaching out to you?
Look, if you are interested in finding out more about the work that I do, or just how you can benefit from gratitude in your life, whether you're in the workplace, in the workforce, or not in the workforce, go to our website, gratitudeatwork.ca, and check out our resources page. Daily Gratitudes is a great nudge reminder. It's your electronic gratitude coach to help you stay grateful. And we also have a playbook that you can use to implement gratitude at work. It's a do-it-yourself playbook. So look on our resources page to be able to get that and check it out. And if you'd like to chat, connect with me, and happy to do so.
Beautiful. Thank you, Steve. Until we meet again, take care.